Alrighty, folks, we are going to talk entrepreneurship, Vegas real estate. We're going to have this conversation with the one and only Lisa Sutton. If you don't know Lisa in Vegas, I don't know what you're doing. She is all over the place. She is living Vegas well, if you follow her on Instagram. And I would say she has gone from beauty queen to entrepreneur. So we're going to figure out that journey. How you doing, Lisa?
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much.
First off, your Instagram page is awesome. I'm now as a Vegas resident. I'm constantly looking at all the events that you're doing, and I'm like, she knows how to live Vegas the right way. So please keep it up. I love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. It's definitely a place where certainly there's always something for everyone here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go back to that idea of moving from beauty queen to entrepreneur. I actually hear it's not actually accurate because you were an entrepreneur before, or at least during that process. So let's go back in time and remind everybody of where Lisa started.
Sure. Yeah, so technically that is correct. I was actually already an entrepreneur, and then I won the title and then just continued on my entrepreneurial journey. No doubt the pageantry accelerated it for sure. But yeah, I had already started my first company by the time I won. We had the cupcakes going and was just breaking into real estate at that time too.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about it. I've actually looked at the history of yours, and you were doing something a little bit unique with cupcakes. Why don't we talk about what that was and the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, so we were putting alcohol into cupcakes and
Very,
selling
very
them
much a Vegas thing.
in Las Vegas. Yeah, exactly. No brainer, right? It was just, such a fun journey. And I always tell this to entrepreneurs who are starting out too. I say, look, if you have an idea for a product or service that could cater to a tourist market, why not try it in Las Vegas, right? We have over 50 million tourists that fly through the airport alone. Forget
Yeah.
everyone that drives in and comes in other means of transportation. So this is the place, right? People are already coming and they're already coming with mentality to spend. So if your product or service is catered to a tourist market and it for some reason it doesn't take off in Las Vegas, it may not be a good idea.
I think that's pretty well said. We've already talked about you won a pageant. Why don't you just tell the pageant that you won, and then we'll move on from there.
Sure. I'm a former Miss Nevada. Back in 2014, during that time, I did nearly 500 community appearances, volunteering in schools, reading in hospitals, working with countless nonprofits, and still very much involved in both the pageant community and our nonprofit community to this day.
Would it be fair to say that winning that in the whole pageant community in 500 events, I can't even imagine that. There's only 365 days in the year, so
Yeah, you're telling me.
that that math doesn't really work in my head. So that's pretty awesome. Uh, really helped you network. I mean, one of the things that I've seen, at least my opinion, is you are a tremendous networker. Now, were you that before the pageant? Did the pageant accelerate that? Talk about how important networking is to the entrepreneur.
Sure. I was social by nature. I am social by nature. And so with all those appearances, I mean, it was sometimes multiple packed into one day, right? So I do a school in the morning, some sort of reading to a class, and then there was like a noon lunch with elected officials, and then nighttime there would be a red carpet event.
Mm,
Right. So now I'm packing 3, 4 events into one day.
wow.
Um, it's at times definitely felt like a full-time job. But I realized that that time period was finite. You
Mhm.
had 1 year as the local reigning title holder. So all these events that I was getting invited to and all these speaking opportunities and all these volunteer opportunities, I really did try to say yes to as much as
Mm.
possible because I knew those invitations are going to dry up, within a year. So I really just tried to maximize that time. I do think especially for entrepreneurs, proximity is everything.
Mm.
So as the saying goes, right? If you hang out with 5 potheads, you'll be the sixth. If you hang out with 5 millionaires, you'll be the sixth. I think it's totally true. And when you are out there ingratiating yourself in the community, in particular, doing stuff with nonprofits within your community that you live and work in and have a business in, you can't find a better approximation of folks. right?
Oh,
These are folks
yeah.
who care about the community, they're involved already. And in general, especially, being in my 20s at the time, the people that I was meeting involved with the nonprofits, you get to meet their board.
Mm,
And the folks that are on the board in general are usually established business people who now are at a point in their life where they want to give back. And it's just a tremendous network.
mm. Now, it, in your 20s, male or female, I can't imagine a lot of us having the foresight to really understand that this year obviously is finite, but then you're leaning on that network to this day, 9 years later. Is that
Oh, yes.
reasonable to say?
100%. To this day, I still have business relationships, personal friendships, connections, community relationships from that time period that I cultivated in that
Mm,
1 year as Miss Nevada, and then leading up to that as Miss Las Vegas. It was a total of 18 months
okay.
of being a title holder. To this day, I still have those relationships.
That's awesome. So again, you started with cupcakes, alcohol and cupcakes in Vegas. Seems like a perfect match in heaven. You go and win a couple of pageants. You do a year. I still can't do the math in my head. 500 events in 365 days. So kudos to you. Where do you go from that? Right, you hang it up. Right, there's a new Miss Las Vegas, a new Miss Nevada.
Mhm.
Where does Lisa go from there?
So then I just poured myself back into my business endeavors. So at
Mm,
that point, I had already obtained my real estate license. And I had teamed up with my first real estate partner. We had a team at Sotheby's for 5.5 years.
okay.
And so that was cranking along, going really strong. I had e-commerce brand called Liquid and Lace. Just really kind of starting that entrepreneurial path of realizing, wow, I can have my own company as long as I team
Mm.
up with an operations partner and we put those processes in place. And I just kept iterating that formula over and over and over. Some endeavors worked and are still around to this day, and some endeavors didn't work. Some of it didn't work out, but
Yeah.
the point is you have to try and figure out what's going to work and what won't work.
Well, speaking about one worked, at least from where I sit today, and I'm following you, you have Chip Las Vegas,
Mhm.
which is a genius. I actually now have a residence in Vegas and made a point of stopping by one of those when I was there last month. So I'm a customer.
Oh,
Um,
awesome. Thank
yeah,
you.
of course. Of course, you got to represent that. You got to help the people that help you. So that's just one way to go. But why don't you talk about what it is, how you came up with the idea, and now you're helping others. I see almost daily posts or certainly weekly posts of others kind of following in your footsteps in your lead. So tell the audience what it is, and we'll go to where you're taking it.
Sure. So, Ship Las Vegas are independent mailbox rental pack and ship stores. So I didn't like create the idea. They've been around for, I guess, probably decades, right? So think like a UPS store, but independent.
Yep,
So it's not a UPS franchise store. It is an independent store that you can name it whatever you like. I chose Ship Las Vegas,
makes
and
sense.
we service all the carriers. So we service the Postal Service, UPS, FedEx. You can service DHL. You could service OnTrack. You really have the option to service all the carriers, any carriers that you'd like.
Mhm.
And I love the model because it's independent. So you aren't beholden to a franchise fee, even though you are an authorized retailer and authorized shipper for
Mhm.
said carriers. You're not beholden to a franchise fee. You're not beholden to a corporate marketing fee. And you aren't beholden to any sort of other restrictions around the way that the layout of the store has to be or how many staff you have to have on site at a given time. You truly can operate it however you see fit as a small business owner.
And the other thing I loved about the model is not only you're doing, shipping with multiple carriers, but you also offer mailboxes, right? There's a lot of, people doing Etsy's and whatnot. They don't want to put their home address down as their business address. You provide these little mailboxes. And the reason I think these are important is there's an old thing, I learned in business school, right? Buy by the foot, sell by the inch. And when you think of being, like a landlord of a home, you could just take that down to a little, I don't know what they are, 6 by 6 inch mailbox, and it's
Yeah.
kind of the same idea.
Exactly. And before getting into the business and starting it, I looked at storage units.
Mm,
I looked at investing into syndication for storage units and actually purchasing some here locally in Las Vegas. And I have friends who own storage unit facilities, and it's their bread and butter, and they absolutely love it. But that comes with its own, so every business has pros and cons, of course, and
sure.
that comes with its own set of pros and cons. And some of the cons that kind of got my attention were, one, you need a huge footprint,
Yeah.
right? You need a huge footprint. And then two, just if you're renting out these storage units, let's say even at, $110 a month, $200 a month, whatever it is, again, huge footprint, and you
Yeah.
just don't have control over whether there's any damage that happens on the inside. So not necessarily that the interior of the unit gets damaged, but the items that are being stored inside.
Hmm.
So a friend of mine, they own storage units here. They had a situation where rats got into one of the units and chewed up like priceless family photos
Oh
of
no.
the customer, right? I mean, you have insurance as a company, of course, right? But like there's no dollar amount that can be placed on something like that. And naturally, of course, customers very upset. I mean, these things happen. And it immediately made me so grateful that I think I can say, you never say never, but like I think I can say never. I will never
Yeah.
have a rat problem in one
Yeah.
of my mailboxes
No,
where
I think
mail
you're
gets
safe.
chewed up by a rat inside the mailbox. It will never happen. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
that right now. Like it'll
I think you're safe. I think
never
that's I think that's a safe bet. I think you're okay, Lisa. Um,
happen.
I am curious because I haven't been able to put it together. When did you have the idea for this? And then how long did it take from idea to execution and then you open it? Because I'm guessing idea, funding, footprint, build out,
Yep.
execution, it wasn't a weekend.
It wasn't a weekend, but it still happened really quickly.
Okay.
So once I X'd out storage unit facilities, then I started looking at UPS franchise stores, and I was
Okay.
getting into diligence of purchasing an existing UPS franchise store.
Okay.
I called a friend of mine, Greg, who at the time had 3 UPS franchise stores in San Diego. And I
Hmm.
was like, tell me about this business model.
Right.
And basically, he was the one that got me spurred onto the idea of looking into an independent store.
Mm.
Um, he loves his franchise stores. He's had them for over a decade. But there are certain things, like we mentioned before, where he's beholden to a layout where he couldn't even put in more mailboxes if he wanted to.
Mm.
And he was like, you've got the franchise fee, corporate marketing fee, all that other good stuff. So he's like, if
Mm.
I were you, go independent, slam in 1,000 mailboxes if you'd like, because you can configure it however you want, and really, kind of make it your own. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm already the patron of an independent store up the street from my house.
Right.
So then I went up the street from my house to Postal Pros, which a friend of mine, Andrew, owns. And I approached him. I said, Andrew, would you ever want to expand? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, well, I want to open up one of these stores down at 215 in Russell area, 215 Flamingo, far enough
Yep.
away, not a competition for you. Can I pay you $10,000 and I'll follow you around in your store for 2 weeks and capture all your processes and really just learn about
Yeah.
the business? And he was just like, you are so crazy. He's like, yeah, fine,
Yeah. I'll take your 10 grand.
yeah, like he was just like, okay, Lisa.
Uh,
Um,
that's
and
funny.
so that's how it came together. And that happened, this is top of 2018. So
Okay.
trained in the store January 2018.
Hmm.
Um, found, confirmed the space that I was going to do my first store in, signed the lease, got keys March of 2018.
Oh,
And then by mid-April 2018, we did our soft open.
wow.
So it's fast.
Yeah, that's respect. That is very quick from following somebody around for 10 grand for a couple of weeks to securing a space to build out to a soft opening. I would not have guessed 4 months. Uh, so
I mean, it was
uh,
one of those things, but it's the also the byproduct of the business model, right?
of
Me
course, yeah.
working in there. One, I looked at my 10 grand as an investment where I was like, I'm going to get in here and I may hate it. I may
Yeah,
not like it at all. And it may not be as simple as I thought it was.
right.
But luckily that wasn't the case. And I realized, wow, I don't actually need a lot of stuff to get started, to get the doors
Right.
open.
Wow. So so when you did a build out, really was that, I mean, how does somebody even get a mailbox, right? I mean, that seems like something you got to involve the government, and that just sounds hard.
I know. The least we can involve the government, the better.
Yeah.
So as a mailbox store, your independent store becomes what's called a commercial mailing agent, where it's a receiving
Oh,
agent.
got it.
And
Okay.
that is a form that is uh, filled out and then signed off by the Postmaster General of the post office that's local to your community. And you are then the CMRA that designates you as a place to receive mail on others' behalf.
Got it.
And then for each mailbox customer, not only do we have a mailbox agreement that's like between them and our store,
Mhm.
but we also have to have them fill out what's called a Form 1583. And this is a form designated through the US Post Office. And it's just a form that simply says that you, Lisa Sutton, are allowing this particular receiving agent, Ship Las Vegas, to receive mail on your behalf from the
Huh.
post office.
Not nearly as involved as I thought it would be. A rather straightforward process. Shout out to the Postmaster General for making it somewhat
Yeah,
easy.
exactly.
Yeah. So you do this in 2018, soft opening in April. How soon do you go, this is working? This is what I thought it would be. Was it like May, or was there some bumps in the road in the beginning, or what happened?
Yeah, so we soft open April on the first location, and because I'm a masochist, I was like, oh, we should do a second location. I heard about this other location. It would
Of
be great.
course you did.
I know. So in hindsight, like I absolutely could have slow rolled that and just focused on one store. Maybe it's like entrepreneur ADHD, but and like severe optimism. So I was like, oh, like we just got one store open. We can get another store open, like no problem.
Mm.
So signed the lease on the second location and we soft open end of May on
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like it was just like go, go, go so fast.
Wow.
But it's because I had soft opened that
Yeah.
first store and I realized really quickly there's actually not a lot of stuff that I need in the store, right? This is not like a restaurant build out where like
Right.
you need all the equipment and then you need the permitting and you need the health
Mhm.
department to come in. Like it's none of that,
Yeah, you
right?
need some cardboard, you need some packing equipment, some stamps, whatever, weighing machines. Yeah, the list,
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
bill of materials is probably not very long.
Not at all. And there's no like build out per se with actually with our first location, there were some half walls that we had to take down to
Mm.
make it just a larger open space, but there was no like build out that had to be done.
Okay.
So it made it really easy. And so boom, open up the second location. And I mean that first kind of 12 to 18 months was like a bit of a blur because between myself and then my business partner, Sarah, with that endeavor, and then of course staff, we're like covering both stores. We went from Sarah was going to be my operator in, that first store, which was at the time going to be the only store. And I was going to be there to help and pop in or whatever. That turned into she's covering one store, I'm covering the other store. And then we're also trying to like simultaneously scale and staff up at the same time.
Wow.
So it was a blur. But I'm so glad that we did it. And with the second store in particular, so it's right outside of Nellis Air Force Base. And that community, I had originally focused on that location because I was like, I come from a military family. So I was like, perfect, we're right outside the base. We'll hire some military spouses, we'll service the base easy. I didn't realize that there was an entire community that lives right outside the base that has nothing to do with the military.
Mm.
And this is an area that doesn't have a lot of resources. If you don't have access to the base, you actually don't have easy access to a lot of resources. And
Interesting.
so that location in particular, the one up by the base, the very first customers we had the day we opened our doors were these two little Black ladies who live in the apartments across the street. And they were so excited to have a place to buy stamps because
Oh,
without
wow.
us, they have to get on a bus and take the bus to the closest post office, which was East Cary, which is like,
Wow.
it's like
Yeah.
40 minutes on a bus.
Wow. So, there's now, did you know that going, you said going in, you were thinking you were going to help the base, and the outside kind of surprised you. Is that what I take from that?
Yes, and it was one of those things where as we were in there getting the store set up, doing build out on like furniture
Mhm.
and counters, taking a look around at the neighborhood and cars coming by and things like that, and just kind of realizing like okay, like this is a different neighborhood than what we're in, over at the other store.
Yeah.
And I have friends who work for Metro, for the police department, and they were like, Lisa, they were like, this is an area we call the triangle. They were like, this
Mm.
is the longest lead times, most amount of calls. Like, you're probably gonna get robbed. Like,
Mm.
and I was like, great.
Oh, great. Where's my lease again? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, great. Um, but I'm so glad that we opened up there because we truly are a fixture within the community. We provide a very much needed service, and knock on wood, to this day we have not been robbed, vandalized, anything, and we're heading into year 6.
Yeah.
And it's just because we're part of
You're a
the community.
valued member of the community. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. So, all right. So we go from 0 to 2 stores in about 5 months.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine what happened in the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. Where does this sit for you today?
So it's been so wild. So just sharing information about the business model, right? In doing stuff on social media or even on podcasts like this, um, folks started paying attention. And I
Mhm.
was getting these inbounds from people who saw from, stuff that I was filming with a friend of mine, Cody, that I was filming with other folks. And I would get inbound emails or DMs from people all around the country starting last year. And they were like, hey, like, I would love to open up an independent store in your city. And first I was like answering like one-off emails. And then it got inundating. And I was just like, this is not like a good way to disseminate information because I'm answering the same questions.
Yeah.
And I ended up putting together a course that
Mhm.
teaches you, it just takes all my SOPs. It takes
Yep.
everything like we implement in our store and how I got started and what we still use to this day, and put it into like one smooth format that people can understand. Um, Put it all into like one platform, one course. And I was like, this will be an easier way to disseminate it out to people, right?
Yeah.
So that was put everything together, put all the finishing touches, July of 2023 of this year, July of
Okay.
2023.
Mhm.
And then it's so wild. I love it. So now we have over 350 students in the course
That's
who have
awesome.
taken the course, gone through it, and we're working our way up to 15 students now who have
Yeah.
either already opened their own store or they're negotiating their lease on their space. So I
Yeah.
love it. It's creating small business owners. It's not a franchise. I'm not like selling like a Ship Las
No.
Vegas
Yeah.
franchise or something. It's purely, here's all the info, no gatekeeping for you to
Yeah.
go open your independent store, because God bless you if you actually go execute,
Yeah. I
right?
know. It's an amazing feeling being a go-giver, sharing exactly what's worked for you. Um, and then more importantly, attracting your tribe, but then watching the folks that execute. I've seen your
Yes.
Instagram posts of, the stores that are popping up because of what you're doing. If somebody is watching this and they already want to learn more, where should we send them?
They can just go to mailboxmoneycourse.com, and all the info's on there. They can see what's in the course. They can see the success stories from real students with their
Mhm.
pictures and everything. And it's just, I'm like so overwhelmed that like it's like really turned into a thing, and it's just so cool to see. Like
It's
people are
awesome.
just like taking the reins, right? They're out there executing, and I love that it's like, especially to like helping people diversify their business portfolio. There's a lot of folks who are, real estate investors.
Mhm.
One guy in Denver, he and his wife own a restaurant, but they were like, you know what? We want a business model that we're done at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, I get it. I hear you. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine running a restaurant. Starter to stay late, just never ends. Customer. Oh, it's
Exactly right.
couldn't
Yep.
couldn't imagine. Couldn't imagine. I do have a question for you. Do you think entrepreneurs are born, or do you think you can learn to be an entrepreneur? What do you think?
I think I think you can learn, because I didn't start just as an entrepreneur. I started my business career working in a law firm.
Hmm.
And I worked as an associate doing business litigation, business bankruptcy. And I thought I had like made it in the sense that like I did what I was supposed to do, right? I went to school, went to grad school, got out and got my big girl job, and I bought a house, and and that's life, right? And it was a great life. But then I think if you're naturally curious, if like you're in your nature, if you're a naturally curious person, in general, opportunity is going to find its way to you. And then that's when it's kind of up to you to like take that next step of actually executing.
Mm.
The cupcakes was an idea that my co-founder Danielle had, and she was telling me about it on the phone. And I was like, I love it. That's such a great
Yeah,
idea.
let's
You
go.
should move to Vegas. Yeah, I'm like, you should move to Vegas and we should start a company. I'll help you. And I stayed working at the firm while we started the cupcakes simultaneously.
Mm.
So I think it can be learned, that natural curiosity of going out and executing. But it takes the kind of the intangible stuff, right? It's the mental
Mm.
grit, it's the
Yeah.
don't quit, it's the constant
Yes.
resourcefulness that you may not get taught in a regular W-2 day job.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you are a licensed real estate agent. You've been selling properties in Vegas for a long time. So we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Vegas real estate. I often tell people I've watched Vegas for 15 years
Mhm.
as an outsider because I think Vegas always moves first, right? Up or down. And it seems to move violently, right? Because I started watching it back before the '08 crash. Now
Right,
I'm a Vegas property owner, so I watch it even more closely.
sure.
But why don't we talk about what you've seen in Vegas, maybe the last 7 years, and then we'll talk about what's going on now in the future. But historically speaking, what's been going on in Vegas?
I mean, Vegas is just ripe for opportunity still to this day, right? I've been here 13 years. I've been a licensed agent for 10 years, and I own Engel Invokers Las Vegas, um, which is, based here in Las Vegas. And just what we've seen with the brokerage, even in the last 3 years, 3.5 years, right? So kind of pandemic onward. In particular, we've seen a lot of folks moving here as either buyers or renters coming from high tax states. Here in Nevada, we have no state income tax. We have very low corporate tax, low cost of living, yet you still have all the big city amenities that make Vegas Vegas. We have a great airport, right? We literally have direct flights everywhere, anywhere you want to go, small town, big town, foreign, doesn't matter. Like you can get there on a direct flight from Las Vegas. So we just have all these perks that make it easy to live here and own here. So it's continuing to be ripe for growth, even though we have experienced exponential growth just in the 13 years I've been here.
Yeah. The one of the things that I would tell someone about Vegas as a complete outsider is I had spent 300 nights in Vegas because of my sales career and all of that, but it was all on the strip.
Right.
Vegas is not the strip. There
No,
is so
it's
much
one
going
part,
on.
right? Yeah, the
Yeah.
strip is one street of the whole city, right? It's whatever, 2.2 miles or whatever, right? It's one street. So it would be like judging any city based on one street of the whole city. Like I think it's a pretty fabulous street, right? It's the Las Vegas Strip. We have everything that you could possibly want, but it's one street. So if you love it and you're into it, I mean, we have a high-rise condo right on the strip. And it's amazing. Like it's an excellent crash pad. It's a great place to be. You're right in the center of everything, and you're actually in the middle of the city as well, which is very convenient. 8 minutes from the airport. But you can leave the strip and you can get off the strip and you're in, name your suburb. It could be any
Right.
suburb in America. It feels the
Yeah.
same.
Agreed.
And we have water, we have mountains, we even have skiing 45 minutes away. So I do feel like we have everything here.
Yeah, the biggest thing that shocked us before we plunked down a bunch of money, the big thing for Olivia and I, Olivia is my wife, was food, right? That's the one that we spoil ourselves. We eat out at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. It's our thing. And
Mhm.
so we spent a month in Vegas and ate out twice a day for a month, and we only had one bad meal. The food
I believe,
quality,
yeah.
food option was awesome.
Food is so good because, again, it's actually because of the strip. So on the strip, we have, the most high-end Michelin star, all these Nobu, all these places, right? All those same purveyors are able to service
Yeah.
these other more local independent restaurants that get started usually, by the way, by the folks who cut their teeth on the strip, right? These
Yeah.
sous chefs who go work for these celebrity chefs on the strip, and they work there, 5, 8, 10, 12 years, whatever. And then they finally want to go open up their own restaurant. They're not going to open on the strip. It's cost prohibitive. It's not possible. So
Right.
where do they go open? They go open in Henderson. They open in Chinatown. They open in Summerlin. They open in the Southwest. They just open somewhere else in the city. And the food is excellent. And it's the same purveyors that are servicing the high-end restaurants on the strip.
Yeah. And then the other thing about Vegas now, kind of looking into the future, um, it seems to me, I'll still call myself an outsider for sure, but it certainly seems to me, trying to read as much as I can, that the next 10 years of investment in Vegas is going to dwarf the last 10 years. And, I think Vegas is on the cusp of some pretty significant growth from investment, which will bring people and even more stuff to Vegas. Is my read correct, or do you see it different?
I completely agree because with Clark County in particular, which is where Vegas is located, I believe it's over 80% of the land is still owned by BLM, Bureau of Land Management.
Mhm.
So there's still a lot of opportunity for growth there. And to unlock that, there's a lot of moving parts to get those things unlocked, but they're starting to get unlocked a little
Mhm.
bit by bit, right? In tranches. And that's going to open up not only development opportunities, but everything else that comes along with building out a small city center around Name Your Neighborhood.
Right.
It's the restaurants and the retail and kind of all of the above. So I think there's just we have so much land here, and over 300 days of sunshine. So there's just more and more opportunity for it to grow. Really, I think in a healthy trajectory, where we can sustain it, and it's not going to be an issue,
Mhm.
and more and more people just get to experience it.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if we didn't push back on a little bit of that, because while land is pretty prevalent, obviously water, I'm sure you've heard this 100 times,
Mm.
water is going to be the limiting factor. But as a local, someone who's been there a long time, what is your view about the water issue? Is it an issue? Is it something to watch? What do you think about that?
I think, because our water comes from the Colorado River, right?
Mhm.
And I think if our elected officials really, pay attention and continue to put Nevada first, they're going to make sure that we're not cutting more side deals with giving our water to California, giving
Yeah,
it to Mexico, like the country Mexico, not like New Mexico, like the
right.
country Mexico, like if we have a water issue here in Southern Nevada, then maybe we should be keeping more water for our community than siphoning it off to other states and other countries.
Right. So there are, what I'm hearing you say is there are some very logical, and I don't know if I'll say simple, but very logical things that could be done for Vegas to keep more water and thus allow for the investment that we just talked about. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then what do you think about Vegas as an investment market? I think you and I both know a lot of people are moving to Vegas kind of as owner occupants, but what do you think about buying investment homes, investment properties? That's what I am, one rental at a time. Something I am going to try to do for my audience, Lisa, is
Mhm.
I'm going to get a buy box. I'm going to evaluate different
Awesome.
places in Vegas,
Yeah.
and I'm going to try to find cash flow. That's something I tackle when I get there in January. What do you think about in Vegas being an investment place, or is it just owner occs and nothing else?
I love investing in Vegas. So I buy between 1 and 4 properties every single year here in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And
I did
it's
not
just
know
one of those
that.
places, regardless of interest rate, because as long as it pencils, right? And
Yeah.
luckily, we've had a really strong, hard rental market, hard in a good way, in the last, especially 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Um, but what's unique about Vegas is we have some asset classes that other cities don't.
Okay.
So when you say rental, most people think SFR.
Mhm.
And we have plenty of those, and they rent out really well, especially with kind of pandemic and post-pandemic.
Mhm.
Another asset class I really love that's particular to Las Vegas is the condo tel market.
Okay.
So there are certain buildings that are zoned as what are called condo tels, so condo hotel put together.
Like
So
the
you can
Palms would be an
own
example?
Palms Place, yep,
Yep.
Palms Place, MGM Signature, Trump International, and Vidara
Okay.
are great examples of towers that are zoned as condo tel, where you
Okay.
can own an individual unit just as a normal condo, yet it is housed in a building that has all these amenities that your HOA pays for,
Mm.
front desk, security, valet, housekeeping on site, all of that's already there and embedded.
Mm.
So you have a couple options when you buy that type of condo. You could live in it yourself. You could keep it just to use when you want to use it, or you could try to monetize it. And when you monetize it, even that has a couple of options. You could either enroll it into their rental pool, and most of the buildings will do just a straight like 50-50 split with you, but it's totally hands off. You're not
Right.
coordinating anything. They take care of everything. Or you can manage it yourself, or you can have a third party property manager manage it for you.
Okay.
And what's nice is those buildings are already zoned as short-term rental by way
Mm.
of the fact that they operate, because they operate like a hotel. So they're not beholden to those same SFR restrictions on the Airbnbs that you're seeing with SFR here in Clark County of like
Yep.
1,000 feet, and you got to get the, all these different things. So totally different when it comes to that, which
Okay.
frankly, I think makes it a little easier.
Hmm.
And then, they're strong. They do really well on Airbnb. We own units in Palms Place. MGM Signature is another great tower as well. And anytime that the strip is busy, in general, your condotel Airbnb is going to be booked and busy because folks are looking for an alternative option. Sometimes they're looking for a cheaper option. They're looking for an option that has a kitchenette in it. Maybe
Hmm.
they're looking for an option that's just off strip. They don't have to deal with all the craziness. Maybe they're looking for an option that doesn't have gaming in the building.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's great.
Well, yeah, something we're going to have to do is get together with you or somebody on one of your agents is I'm
Definitely.
going to document building a buy box. I'm going to document kind of figuring it out. I'm going to probably spend a month or two just figuring out where I want to focus. Maybe it's a condo hotel. Maybe it's FSRs. I don't know yet. Maybe it's duplexes through quads. I don't know yet. But yeah, something I want to do is document a new buy box because all my buying today has been in California, retired on it. I'm going to have some fun in a new market and try to
Oh
do it
yeah,
again.
there's just so much here that you can really kind of explore it all and
Right.
just see what works for you and what's interesting to you. Even though we invested heavily in like residential multifamily with
Sure.
residential here in Las Vegas, I like that it's so diversified.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you not only do the condo hotel, but you do have some long-term rentals, or have you
Oh
gone
yeah.
midterm, or you do
Yep.
long-term? Yeah.
Yep. Several SFRs that are long term, because again, it's just such a strong rental market here. And you'll see, when you get here, I mean, they're very strong zip codes
Yeah.
correlated to, school performance and things like that as well, that are just strong places, especially when folks move here with the family or with young kids. They want to be in certain school districts, they want to be in certain areas of town. And so those SFRs just really perform really well.
Well, again, we'll meet sometime early next year, but if somebody wanted to reach out to you, my audience is full of real estate investors. Some of them want to invest in Vegas. How could they reach out to your team or you? Should they send you something on Instagram? Because I know there's a lot of people going, how do I contact her? Because she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can just DM me on Instagram. My email address for the brokerage is lisa@elitehomes.us. But easiest way, just shoot me a DM and we'll get you connected.
Yeah, send her a DM on Instagram. That's why I follow her. Also, when you follow her on Instagram, you'll actually smile. It's actually happy stuff. It's not doom and gloom. It's Lisa Song Sutton on Instagram. So, Lisa, when you sit here now on the cusp of 2024, why don't we do this? Why don't you look back at 2023 that's almost over and give Lisa Sutton a grade? How'd you do? What worked? What didn't work? I know I'm surprising you with this, so let's see how you're doing.
Um, well, I guess if we broke it down like certain areas, right?
Sure.
Um, I'd say on the business side, I'd give myself an A in the sense that like our teams and partner, everyone just executed so well this year. We weren't sure what was going to happen, especially top of the year. Like
Yeah.
January
Yeah.
2023 was like, we weren't sure what was going on, right? Real
I
estate was
remember.
quiet. They were talking about raising interest. Yeah, like it was quiet
It
January
was dead.
2023, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Heading into February, like we weren't sure what was going on. And the team executed so well and really just kind of, dug our heels in and said,
Yeah.
look, like we're not going anywhere. So how do we continue?
Mhm.
Um, Ship store has been going, I mean, yeah, everything has gone really well on the business side. And of course the course, like
Yeah.
what a
Yeah.
surprise. That was like a side of a side hustle. And I
Good for
love
you.
that it's like, creating small business owners that's
Yeah.
feels very purposeful and impactful to me. So
Yeah.
I love that. I'd say maybe on like personal like fitness and health, I'd say maybe like a B. I wanted to, so I had class pass and I'll go do like barefoot boot camp and stuff. Um, there were some weeks I was not as consistent as others. And so I have, you know, like my ship partner, Sarah, she is like hardcore, you know, hot Pilates, 6 a.m. Like she's like in there. Yeah, she's in it to win it. And like,
Wow.
I just, you know, props to it because there are some days I'll do it and some days I will not. So
Okay. Very, very cool. Well, let's talk about 2024. I mean, I don't know if you set goals. I'm going to guess you do, or plans. Uh, what do you see out in the next 12 months? Because it's coming whether we like it or not.
yeah, no, I'm super excited for 2024. I think, especially from a real estate standpoint, you know, this is a time period where look, we're heading into an election year,
Hmm.
right? We're heading into a time period where at least the news anyway, right? It's been crying for the last, what, 12 to 18 months about how we're in this recession and it's a big
Yeah.
recession and there's big tech layoffs and all this stuff. I will tell you this, owning small business, especially with the ship stores, it still can be challenging hiring on Main Street. So
Mm,
if it's challenging hiring on Main Street, we're just not in a recession yet.
yeah.
You know, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Good point.
so I'm excited for 2024. I think there's just a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline for Vegas in particular. We're gonna get the Oakland A's. You know, their Fountain Blue just opened.
Mm,
There's just a lot of like new exciting growth happening in the city. And I think
yeah.
with real estate, we're just continuing to be poised to be a place where people want to be.
Yeah.
Again, fleeing those high tax states.
Yeah. And there is rumors of an NBA stadium coming out that way as
Mhm.
well, which I, as a basketball fan, am excited about. Um, well, you talked about real estate to start 2023, and you are so right, right? Rates went up to 7% last November. November, December, January is very quiet. I knew personally a bunch of flippers that lost six figures because they got caught in that vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
This December is very different, right? Starting November 3rd, rates peaked at 8%. Now they're at 6.6.
Yep.
Something I said on my channel, I want you to agree or disagree. By all means, disagree if you do. I said something that I thought was crazy the other day, and that was the spring selling season started. How does that feel? How does that hit you?
Yeah, I completely agree. As soon as they inched down just an iota, right?
Mm,
So our team at England Bokers, we have buyers who are sitting on the sidelines,
yeah.
absolutely just sitting there waiting to jump into the game. And they're deterred by interest rates, they're deterred by whatever. But now they're realizing, look, the longer I wait on the sidelines, it doesn't matter what's happening to interest rates. Because in fact, if they come down,
Yeah.
more buyers are right. So it affects the pricing actually. And you end up in multiple offer situations. You end up waiving things that I think as a buyer rep, you shouldn't be waiving. You don't want to waive, right?
Mhm.
But that's what the situation is going to be. So
Yeah.
we just tell our buyers, look, like everything is a case by case situational circumstance, but if you have the wherewithal to afford the P&I, then now is the time because you can always refinance out to a lower rate later.
Yeah. It's a one-way bet. You get a fixed rate debt. If it goes up, you're good. If it goes down, you have the options. It's wonderful
Mhm.
advice. And again, it really does seem to me, as somebody who studied the consumer and the economy for 30 years, we have been stacking up demand kind of like a pipe, right? Just holding it back. And to your point, I think a 0.5% would have been enough to have marginal demand fly out. We're gone down 150 basis points. It
Right.
feels like a lot of demand. Unfortunately, with real estate, as you know, Lisa, there's this other side called supply. I don't
Right.
see it coming. Where's it going to come from, Lisa?
That's the thing. I don't see where this huge influx of supply comes from, right? Folks are paying their mortgages.
Hmm.
Even people who bought fairly recently, right? Even as of 2 years ago, they've got a fabulous interest rate. So even if they want to move, right? We have
Hmm.
sellers who they've outgrown their house. They've had two kids since they locked in their interest rate, right? They're not moving. They're like, I'm
Bunk beds.
keeping the
They're
house.
buying
Yeah,
bunk beds, Lisa.
exactly. They're like, I'm not moving yet. I'm gonna hold it tight. So I just don't see where this influx of inventory comes from. I mean, the builders are building as fast as they can, but even then, Even with new construction, you do have some multiple offer situations going on there. There's not a ton of builder incentives the way that there were previously.
Yeah.
They're holding firm on their pricing. So I just don't see where the huge influx of inventory comes from at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of fun. You are amazing. You are very knowledgeable, very experienced in all things entrepreneurship, real estate, Vegas. Keep doing what you're doing on Instagram. I smile every time. It's lots of fun. One more time, where can they find the course and where can they find you?
They can find the course at mailboxmoneycourse.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at Lisa Song Sutton.
Lisa, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.